I was listening to a radio show today that was discussing irrational fears. It reminded me of how I first developed my fear of cigar smoke. It started one night. Me and my best friend Rob were driving his new car he bought just 2 days before. We were so excited to be going on our first road trip. It was October and it was Halloween night. We headed from my hometown and set out to go as far north as we could and see where we'd end up. This happened 2 years ago, but I remember it vividly like it all happened just last week. We got about 20 miles off the highway, then decided to take a back road we weren't familiar with. Before that night, I could have never told you that road even existed. I remember us being surprised first to see a hitchhiker on this road, as it was so remote, and at this stage we were driving for about an hour just on this road that seemed to be going nowhere. In the darkness we nearly missed him, but there he stood with his thumb out and a cigar in his mouth. He looked to be agitated about something. My friend Rob told me to drive on. I remember his words, "Drive on, Sam, he could be a serial killer for all we know." I so wish I listened to Rob and just drove on. Then I wouldn't be waking up night after night having a nightmare. I stopped the car, pulling over to the side of the dark, lonesome road, and pulled down the window. The strange man with the cigar spoke before we could even say anything. He spoke with a thick southern drawl. "Hey there, boys. Could y'all drive me up the road up there to the motel? I've been walking for miles and my back is killing me." I looked at Rob, trying to plead with my eyes to give some excuse not to and drive off. But he said in a chirpy tone, "Sure man, hop in the back." The man put the cigar back in his mouth and walked to the back door, opened it and sat in, not even asking if any of us minded his smoking in the car. I looked at the indoor mirror in the car and could see his eyes looked empty. I can't explain any better than that, but at the time I remember thinking they looked empty, like something was definitely off about this guy. I remember not being able to hide my curiosity anymore, so I asked him what brought him all the way out here. He laughed and said, "I'm a bit of a drifter, me. You're likely to see me anywhere." Rob looked at me. I knew he was thinking the same as me. An easy way out to not give an answer of what he was really doing here. A few minutes later, we were outside the motel. I was feeling happy about this weird guy getting out and us getting back to our road trip. The man got out and said, "Thanks guys, by the way, my name is Jack. Well, enjoy the rest of your Halloween." We both said, "You too," and waved at him. Rob let out a breath, saying, "I'm sure glad to see the back of that guy." We drove off, and just a few yards up the road, Rob spotted something in the trees. It was like smoke. "What's that?" he said. I said maybe it's some kids having a Halloween party, and it's a fire in the woods. I had a very stupid idea and stopped the car in close by the trees and said, "Let's see what's going on there." I knew Sam was cursing me, but after a minute of trying to talk me out of it, we both got out of the car, shut the doors quietly, and walked across the road into the woods, following the smoke. We stopped suddenly when we heard voices were coming from behind a few trees in front of us. It was dark and cold, and I remember feeling colder as soon as I got the smell of cigar smoke. Chills ran through my body when I heard the weird guy's voice. We both lied down, and tried to crawl away, but then we realized we had to stay still or we would be seen. He walked from behind a tree and we could see him clearly now, standing, holding his cigar, talking to another man, near a fire that was causing all the smoke we saw. The weird guy who called himself Jack said, "Well, where the hell was he?" The other man replied, "He was hiding right here, in the woods. Luckily we can burn his clothes here and bury the body. If he had made it all the way to the next town, he'd have all the police and the FBI etc. knowing we are the Wood Valley Killers." I remember after hearing those words, my eyes widen and heart thump in my chest with fear. Me and Sam were just watching the news before heading out on a road trip, and they mentioned multiple murders with notes left behind with the bodies. The Wood Valley Killers were written on the notes. I was frozen with fear, knowing that two cold-blooded serial killers were burning their victims' clothes right in front of us. We both looked at each other, knowing that we had to stay still and quiet if we were to survive. Suddenly, in the stillness of the night, my heart thumped harder in my chest and blood rushed to my head as my mobile phone rang. The ringtone sounded deafening in the still cold October night air. We both jumped up and ran out of the woods towards the car. The man's voice screamed, "Hey, who's there?" We heard branches being stamped on, of running behind us. I could feel them gaining on us. We ran out onto the road. The car was just a few steps away, but felt like miles. We heard gunshots. Sam screamed in pain. I knew he was shot. He was across on his side of the car and opened the door and fell in, screaming in pain. I ran to the door and opened it, not wasting time to turn to see was he going to jump on me. I knew he was right behind me. The keys were in my pocket. I locked the door and pulled them out with my shaky hands, then stuck them in and turned the key. His gun was pointing to the glass. All I could hear was a gunshot and Sam screaming and the glass shattering. The engine started and I pressed my foot on the pedal and drove off as fast as I could. When we reached the next town, I went into the police station and a man put a newspaper down from his face. And there, looking right at me, was the crazy killer, Jack. I was about to scream when the face changed to who really was the local sheriff. He looked at me strange and said, "Can I help you, son?" I then told him everything.